My dad's like, if you want to win again, I can teach you how to win again. We've got to put the phone off. We've got to get that mindset back. Get rid of everything that's happened in the last couple of months. Speak to someone properly. Get your mind right. It's nothing to do with your ability. You're the man.
Let's dive into the session with none other than Chad le Clos.
WhatsApp Chad to 084 000 947 to receive a link to watch or listen to this intimate discussion with Chad le Clos.
702.
You're listening to the best of The Money Show.
The Money Show.
Welcome to the best bits of The Money Show. You're listening to a digest of some of the best interviews from the show this week, some of the best thoughts, comments, and insights. If you'd like to hear a bit more, please go to our website or your podcast app and search for The Money Show. As always, there's bound to be someone in your community or street WhatsApp group or whatever who just maybe might be touched by one of the conversations on their studio or otherwise. Might be an idea to just send it along to them so that they can hear it too. Tonight, we bring you a mixture of stories from the world of money from the week that has been. This week's shapeshifter was Nonku Pitje, the CEO at Discovery Corporate and Employee Benefits. She has a really interesting story about how you sort of inaugurate, how you create and lead a new division, what you have to do, the setting of examples and tones and structures and things like that. I found it to be a really interesting conversation with Nonku Pitje.
It's actually been an incredibly, I think, one humbling, but also building experience. So actually, even though I'm the inaugural CEO, what really happened is that we had a few divisions that focused on the employer, sort of B2B. We brought them all together, and under this umbrella of Discovery Corporate and Employee Benefits, we've got this new opportunity to impact lives and to help employers help their employees. So it's actually been a really one humbling, one building, but also just an exhilarating journey so far. I've absolutely loved it.
Often the first boss of something sets structure and a tone that actually endures for a long time, much more than the second bosses sometimes.
Yes.
Were you very conscious of that?
Extremely conscious. I mean, for me, there were probably three components that I looked at. First was people. I mean, you can do nothing without having a great team around you. So first focused on my exco and then the broader business and how we make sure we can build this together and the sense of a purpose, direction together. The second was very clear strategic objectives. What are we here to do? What does impact look like? What does success look like? And the third was actually getting the rubber to hit the tar. It's lovely to be the inaugural, help me with this word.
It's a silly word.
But you don't want to be the one that is not successful within the group. And I'm also mindful of, I'm a woman in corporate South Africa. I'm the only woman CEO within the South African composite. And I'm also a black only woman CEO in the South African composite. So I felt a lot of responsibility around ensuring that not only am I bringing the people together, having clear strategic objectives, but actually make sure that you deliver what you promise to deliver and that business is successful.
So there's a lot going on. And you are starting a new division, and it's got to be part of a much bigger identity. Discovery is a big identity. I mean, a big identity in middle-class South Africa. But you also want to be not too distinct, but slightly distinct. You want the people in the office to know, that one works at, corporate wellness. Was that a bit tricky?
Not at all. Firstly, I think my appointment was such a shift for the business. And I often say I didn't have time to be excited. I mean, I was super energized.
No, I'm sure.
But I actually just felt a sense of such importance to do this right and to show up in the right way. But it was so distinct because there was only one of Nonku. It's only one Nonku Pitje. I often say in our board meeting, on my right-hand side is my colleague, Kenny, and on my left-hand side is my colleague, Rian. One is from Invest, one is from Life, and then Nonku in the middle. And by the virtue that I was the first, especially the first woman, I actually just I have to walk the road of making sure that I'm doing the job I'm meant to do, that I bring people along with me, that I elevate the business, and that I actually make an impact with the team that I work with. So actually the fact that I walk in high heels is quite different in itself. But also I'm quite present, I'm quite in touch. I want people to feel seen and valued. I take a big, it's important to me as I walk the floors that I greet everyone. They feel seen, they feel valued. It's a very important thing to me. And that in itself has made me different, has made me stand out. And it's actually authentically who I am.
I mean, it's amazing. I think just speaking to different people in corporate, I mean, you know, look around, this is as corporate as I've ever got. But I do think there's been a much greater acceptance of how to treat people in corporates over the last 20 years. You know, they can still be quite brutal places, and probably always will be. It's the nature of them. But they're making sure that someone feels seen. It's a big culture shift in a lot of places over the last 20 or 30 years.
Yeah, definitely. I must say, I'm very lucky that I work in a business where two of our values pertain to people, liberating the best in our people and having the best people. And so we've always been quite deliberate about people. In fact, we have something we call Discovery Day. And Discovery Day is actually a week. And this year we named it D92 because the business was founded in 1992. But that week is all about our people. We take what we launch to our clients, we customize it, we amplify it, and then we launch it to our people. So it's a whole week of celebrating our people, who they are, the value. We've got something within the business that we call Star Awards, which is really a recognition of brilliant people doing brilliant things, and we reward them in a brilliant way. They go on these excursions overseas that are unbelievable. But I think the recognition that people make or break your business, we don't sell a tangible product. We don't sell water, Valpre. You actually sell security when people need it the most. So within the health business is probably the most palpable, where if somebody is going through something significant, oncology, cancer, and you can hold their hand, you can pay a claim, that is power. And that you do only through people. So I think we do quite a lot in making sure that we see and we value our people. Can we do more? Of course we can do more. But it's really intrinsic for us and very centered in everything that we do.
You spend a lot of time at Discovery Health.
Indeed.
And there are probably very few jobs in Sandton that touch as many people directly as a medical aid of that size. I forget what proportion it is of the market. But
almost 60% of the market.
60%. So when you're involved in a company like that, the consequences of mistakes or the consequences of a decision that's maybe motivated in the wrong way or for the wrong thing are huge. Did you ever find that, almost daunting or just something quite different to other corporate space?
Yeah, I must say Discovery Health, I would call for myself the best university you could have gone to in terms of learning many dimensions of business, not only, I guess, dealing, to your point, with consequences of some of the things that go wrong, because things can go wrong. But when they do, it is really tangible and palpable and really hard on people. But to be honest, I don't think the approach is ever fear, because there's a sense of optimism and we are always trying to do the right thing. The purpose of our business is one, for me, that will stand the test of time, to make people healthier, enhance and protect their lives. That is the core of what we do. And so for us always, and trust me, when I worked in the Discovery Health business, there were lots of complexities sometimes with the regulator, sometimes getting something fundamentally wrong with clients, etc. But it was never daunting. It was, can we do better and what is better? And one of the best examples, Stephen, for me was just how we showed up during COVID. You took something that was so stressful for the country, for the nation, stressful globally, and we took that and we found the opportunity to play such a significant role because of who we were. We turned our whole office into the biggest vaccination center in the country, amongst other things. But that, I think, shows that many things can go wrong. That was one of the biggest things that went wrong for the world, not just for us. But how we step into it and step through it. And you've seen some obviously recent ones. But again, I think what is admirable is coming to the fore, admitting what's happened, and then doing something that's right.
So you were, for a while, the primary growth officer at Discovery Health, and you launched several new products. Now, if you say to me, let's talk medical aid, I'm going to, because it's just so blooming complicated, and I don't care. Does my broker think it's okay? Yes, tick. Okay, next. So now when you're trying to launch new products into an audience that is sort of tired of it in a way, we all understand it's important. How difficult is that to do? Because you've got to grab attention in an important and careful way.
I have to be honest, it was one of my most energizing roles. We called it New Markets because it was trying to open up and diversify into new markets. And primary health in particular was something that was giving some kind of healthcare and access to healthcare to employees that have no cover. They go to work every day. They work for big employers in certain cases, but not all employers can provide medical aid. So it was a new segment, much cheaper, much more affordable. And I had never been so energized. I was very clear. We're going to give 1 million more people healthcare cover. The market has always been sort of around that 8 million mark, and for so long. But you've got the mother, and you can see my passion, is because I have an aunt, and I have a cousin, and I have who have to line up at clinics. So if we're able to just shift the dial and at a fraction of the price, give certainty to someone who says, my child is sick, but I need to get to the office. Can I get to a GP? So the kind of energy and passion that I had meant that the design of the product, the pricing of the product, the iteration of the product. I used to go out. I didn't leave selling to just our distribution team. I was on the road. And I think all players, not just Discovery, who've contributed in this space have done the most incredible thing. So I think, when you get to as old as I am, you have seen many things. One of the things you've seen is if you have your health, if you don't have your health, you have nothing. You think you have many problems until you have a real health problem. Then all the other problems dissipate and go into the background. So because we come from the space, we see all sorts of things that sort of happen. When this came about for me, it was like it's an opportunity to just do magic and to go into a new and different part of our business and grow it. And it has grown significantly. It's got a new leader now who's also doing an incredible job. But actually from having nothing there to almost having 500,000 people having these different new products is incredible in a very short period of time.
I want to go back a little bit because you started in management consulting.
That's correct.
That's not something I was going to do. And in fact, you went into the energy sector. Now, I'm guessing was this pre-load shedding?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I
didn't know that word when I went into yes at the time.
I mean, if load shedding had happened, you might well have stayed in it because there would have been so much opportunity. But to move from energy to medical aid, you have to explain that one to me, Nonku.
The truth is, management consulting is so diverse. You just happen to be put where you put. I was completely green, coming from university, completely naive, optimistic. The world was at my feet and everything was possible. And I just got put into energy. So I went to every power station. I can tell you power stations backwards. I lived in small little towns. I was at Tutuga and Duva, etc., including actually Megawatt Park was a place that I worked a lot. But the truth is what you do is offer solutions. They were implementing a big system solution and the processes that came with it in order to create efficiencies in the business, etc. And what it did for me, actually, it taught me to be completely change agile. Things are not scary because if you can go to a place like that in an industry you don't understand, speak to engineers, work in the power station in order to deliver whatever the solution is, where else can you work? So I've never been daunted around, is it medical aid? I've actually moved to where the business has asked me to go. Even within Discovery, I probably in the 20 years I've been there have had 7 to 8 jobs. Yeah. And they've been quite diverse. You can see now I'm in retirement funds and group life cover, and I'm loving it. And I think that's the muscle that a management consulting background gives you.
It's your shapeshifter on The Money Show, Nonku Pitje, the CEO at Discovery Corporate and Employee Benefits, with us for a few more moments.
The Money Show.
Shapeshifters.
Your shapeshifter tonight, Nonku Pitje, the CEO at Discovery Corporate and Employee Benefits. Nonku, you are among the second or maybe the third generation, depending, of women leaders in corporate, particularly black women leaders in corporate. Do you think the challenges, problems, difficulties, have they changed since that first generation started to come through in sort of the 90s?
Sure, Stephen, I just feel like we have to do so much more. I feel like there were trailblazers, but there were so few that it didn't become embedded in the fiber and the fabric of what is business as usual. I feel there's so much more, and role modeling is such a powerful way to change things. If people are not seeing enough of us doing the thing, how do you believe you can reach it and do it yourself? So I think there's so much more for us to do.
Is this something that companies need to, is it, people who look like me need to spend more time thinking about? Where does it come from?
What is incredible is that I think companies together or supported by legislation have had to walk a road, and companies have, But I also think that there's a lot more to do, and you're right, people like you. So, male leaders in organizations. I know my career was sponsored a lot by male leaders within organizations. I probably would not be where I am without having that. But I think it has to be deliberate. I don't think it can happen through magic. I mean, at Discovery, we have what we call Discovery Women Move, which was a platform by women for women, because actually women, while there's been a lot of change, we're not seeing or hearing the dialogue.
Yeah.
And you actually have to make it visible, and you have to make it almost tangible for people to see it. You've got to publish it, you've got to have things happen, and you've got to be deliberate around where you want the change to happen. In our business, there's been a huge amount of change. 60% of people that work at Discovery are women. So that change has happened at multiple levels, from staff level to sort of middle management. There's been a lot of change. At that top tier is where we need more work to be done. And actually, when we had Discovery Women Move, was around, can we support more inclusion and growth in that top tier level?
Nonku Pitje there, the CEO of Discovery Corporate and Employee Benefits. She's been there for a long time, but also just talking about some of the things that really get her going in the morning.
My dad's like, if you want to win again, I can teach you how to win again. We've got to put the phone off. We've got to get that mindset back. Get rid of everything that's happened in the last couple of months. Speak to someone properly. Get your mind right. It's nothing to do with your ability. You're the man.
Let's dive into the session with none other than Chad Leclerc.
WhatsApp Chad to 084 000 947 to receive a link to watch or listen to this intimate discussion with Chad Leclerc.
702.
The best of the Money Show from this week.
Consumer Focus this week, Lee Soobrathi is the Consumer Goods and Services Ombud. Looking at online shopping, still the lion's share, around 26% of their complaints come from online shopping. Not necessarily from any particular company, just the same issues coming up again and again and again. And why that is, what's going on in online shopping that this keeps happening?
So when we talk about e-commerce, and I think e-commerce has been something that has been increasing year on year since, as we go back to COVID 2020. At that time, we saw a 66% increase in that year in e-commerce transactions, I think, across the globe, and I mean, let alone South Africa. I mean, at the CGSO specifically in that year, we jumped from just 2% in e-commerce in 2020 to 35% just 6 months later. So the trend is definitely there. Currently, it is sort of, it is getting a bit more consistent in terms of the year-to-year figure. But yes, to answer your questions, I think we are now dealing with a digital consumer. We're dealing with consumers who are engaging on multiple platforms. But I think e-commerce is here to stay. And I think it's validly expected that the complaints or highest categories contributing to complaints will fall within the e-commerce and online transaction space.
Some people dominate that space in certain categories. Do you see a lot of repeat offenders? Is a high proportion of these complaints coming from one or two or three of the companies?
Yeah, I mean, when we're dealing with online, especially with online platforms, and a lot of the platforms, I mean, if we have to do a count, there's not that many number of large platforms, especially operating within the borders of South Africa. So it's quite natural that if a high percentage of e-commerce complaints are coming in, it's accepted that it would be contributed due to those specific supplies. However, and this is something that we see, especially in the ombud space, a complaint doesn't necessarily mean that there's something untoward. Of course, every case is particular in terms of its own sort of circumstances. However, of course, what we are seeing is that when we do see repetitive behaviors or we see action that is questionable, we do engage with these larger platforms to ensure that they either change their business processes, their online terms and conditions, etc. But what you will actually find is that we have been finding 64% in favor of consumers, which means that there is still quite a large or substantial portion that's actually being found against the consumer. So I think for now, the scales are more or less balanced in terms of, I would say, prohibited conduct versus actual outcomes or solutions being resolved for consumers.
And when you try and speak to these companies, do they sort of sit up and listen? I mean, do they respond to what you tell them?
Yeah, that's one of the benefits and one of the privileges of signing up and I guess complying with the Consumer Goods and Services Ombud. I guess for the longest while, there's been a perception that one has the option to sign up and participate. The Consumer Goods and Services Industry Code is compulsory for every service provider or supplier. And what we do find is that when we do engage with these suppliers, in fact, go back, they look at their business processes, they look at the trend and the analysis, and what we find is even though the number of complaints may not drop, but the probability of finding in favor of the consumer will then obviously decrease in proportion to those steps taken by the supplier to correct their processes. So we do see a concerted attempt to resolve and make the system sustainable and compliant with the CPA.
We've seen consumer rights being strengthened over the years. Are there still weaknesses in the Act? Are there still weaknesses that you can see where maybe you have to rule against the consumer because of what the law says, when actually you think, that's not just? Do you see some areas of our law that still need tightening?
Yeah, if we look at the two main pieces of legislation, and this is in addition to the Constitution and any other operation of law, but primarily we use the Consumer Protection Act, which was promulgated, I would say, about 15 years ago. We have the Electronic Communications and Transactions Act, which is from 2002. Now, if one does a calculation on the number of years that have passed since, and you scale that by the emergence of technologies and emerging technologies, I mean, it's quite clear to say that we no longer can just rely on what the letter of the law says. We have to apply innovative ways and fill in those gaps. And that is where I think the consumer ombuds, both MIOSA as well as the CGSO, we have the ability to make recommendations, which means that we can suggest solutions that sometimes, push the boundaries of what the legislation requires, but also balancing the principles of fairness, justice, and, essentially what would the reasonable person do? So, yes, the legislation does require attention. In fact, the CGSO has worked with the National Consumer Commission and the DTIC, the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, and we released a paper earlier this year calling for reform specifically addressing this point on what we're seeing on the ground as gaps and our suggestions on what should be done in order to close those gaps. So the conversation is definitely happening, and we hope that it'll start to gain traction sooner rather than later.
No, sure. I mean, there's a lot that's sort of changing in this area. At some point, the move towards consumers probably comes to an end, and it might start to move back a little bit. I mean, as things stand now, are things kind of balanced in sort of roughly the right place? Or do you think that still the companies have a bit too much power?
I think we have a lot to do as institutions, as stakeholders in our various platforms that we sit. And I think ultimately, the power lies in the hand of the consumer. A better informed consumer and, in fact, a better informed supplier makes for a sustainable environment. But I mean, we've seen in the recent 24 months with the emergence of these technologies, where we used to have lay-bys in the past, now we have things like buy now, pay later. So we are dealing with, I would say, quite novel and different, or rather new concepts, and we have to grapple with this with the legislation that we have. But ultimately, I think everybody has a part to play, which is why we have expanded our consumer education efforts to ensure that every consumer should be asking minimum questions before concluding a transaction. Things like, what are my rights in terms of a dispute? What are my rights of return? When can I request a refund, especially when it comes to online transactions? I think we as consumers, we're so used to this instantaneous way of thinking. I can buy it now instantly. It arrives at my door an hour later, without sometimes thinking through the consequences if something goes wrong. So I think it's something we have to reflect on. But to answer your question, I don't think we'll ever get there in the current space we're in. But we are trying our best to make sure that we get as far ahead as possible, and that can only come through concerted efforts on consumer education and holding suppliers and consumers to a certain extent liable and accountable to a certain degree.
Soobrathi there, the Consumer Goods and Services Ombud, looking at why online shopping is such a big issue, but also how do you go around strengthening some of the laws to protect you, the consumer?
My dad's like, if you want to win again, I can teach you how to win again. We've got to put the phone off. We've got to get that mindset back. Get rid of everything that's happened in the last couple of months. Speak to someone properly. Get your mind right. It's Nothing to do with your ability. You're the man.
Let's dive into the session with none other than Chad Leclerc.
WhatsApp Chad to 084 000 947 to receive a link to watch or listen to this intimate discussion with Chad Leclerc.
The best of the Money Show
on 702.
702.
Business Unusual this week, Advaita Naidoo, the Africa Managing Director at Jackhammer Global, looking at family businesses. They're all over the place. They're all around you. You won't necessarily notice. But how do you manage succession planning? How do you manage a family business? How do you create that long-term value across generations?
A huge amount of South Africa's economy sits in businesses that prefer not to be public. They're manufacturing, agriculture, logistics, retail. Lots of them third or fourth generation even, not just, mothers and daughters. They employ hundreds of people. Some of them anchor entire towns, which is amazing to see. It's these kind of like microeconomies. And I think what's really interesting about these businesses is that they're under no obligation to professionalize. Nobody's forcing any kind of transparency on them. So all the leadership decisions they make, they're entirely self-imposed. And the ones who choose good governance early, before they're forced to, are usually the ones that are standing 3 generations later, and they're so fascinating.
Succession planning is a big thing for bigger companies. With families, there's the famous sort of TV drama Succession, which is all very dramatic. But, is succession an issue in family-run businesses? Do they have a plan that could often break down?
Yeah, look, I think as within corporates, the plan exists on paper or it's like a bullet point in the annual strat agenda, but sometimes it's not being tested properly. Nobody's asked the assumed successor, first of all, if they actually want it, or even benchmark them against somebody else who might be equally capable. Everyone kind of like bobs along until some kind of health scare or an unsurprisingly, but apparently shocking retirement forces the question. And by then, some businesses are making the decision under pressure instead of by design. And, we work with a lot of clients who do treat succession like an annual audit. They sit down every year and they genuinely ask, is this still the right plan? Is this still the right person? Some families do that, some don't. And it's such a simple thing to build in.
Sure. Is there a practical difference between a family business that professionalizes sort of early and one that waits a bit? Sometimes one that waits a bit might just keep a little bit more of the original soul.
Yes, I think that's really a great point. The soul and the values that make it what it is. But I think the early movers do it from a position of strength. The governance, the outside leadership that they bring in while things are going well, they become additive, not corrective. But sometimes the ones who wait to do it might do it under duress. Like I said, it could be a health scare, it could be a bad year, it could be a sibling conflict that's spilled into the business, and those happen. And then it's political and defensive, and it's not strategic. And anyone walking in is walking into a much harder job to do. They could be a referee to a dispute and not there to lead.
Does having a board help? And I'm reminded, I think it's Thirsty, the drinking water company. If you look at their board, I think 2/3 of the board all have the same surname. And there's sort of one person who doesn't, who's the chair, who's clearly playing referee.
Yeah. They do, and I think there are a lot of companies that have independent directors with real relevant expertise. They're not just friends of the family. They're not there to keep the peace. And a board that's actually allowed to disagree with the founder or the second generation and does, they give them regular substantive interrogation of strategy and not just a once-a-year governance like tick box exercise. Those are the ones who are really asking the hard questions. And it's a strange thing to say, but I think the healthiest boards we work with are the ones where meetings get uncomfortable and somebody's pushing the boundaries a little bit.
Are there some good examples of, companies that have done this well? Are there some cautionary tales maybe of companies that haven't actually done this well at all?
Yeah, look, I think the ones who are doing it well are the ones who, like I said, are bringing in members, outside members sooner rather than later. The bigger crises are the ones where they delay, they wait until a crisis forces the decision instead of choosing the timing themselves. And again, that's not a strategic hire. And I think there are some instances where family members aren't acting in community. They want to make their mark and be the individuals who took good to great, really. And whether it's a family unit or a family business or even a corporate business, let's be honest, there should be no superstars, even if grandpa does have a favorite.
Yeah, it's so interesting to watch. I would like to think that the way in which family businesses are run, it can't really be codified. Every family is different. So is every business.
That's exactly it. Every business is different, and it's never a one-size-fits-all. But I think as long as you're asking the strategic questions, is this still serving the vision that we want to achieve with the people that we have around the table and with the strategy that we've chosen as a family? If you're pressure testing those assumptions and finding that it's not really serving the purpose, then it's time to make a change.
Advaita Naidoo there, the Africa Managing Director at Jack Hammer Global, looking at some of the leadership challenges facing family businesses, the complexities of succession planning, and when you should bring in external leadership.
My dad's like, if you want to win again, I can teach you how to win again. We've got to put the phone off. We've got to get that mindset back, get rid of everything that's happened in the last couple of months, speak to someone properly, get your mind right. It's nothing to do with your ability. You're the man.
Let's dive into the session with none other than Chad Leclerc.
WhatsApp Chad to 084 000 947 to receive a link to watch or listen to this intimate discussion with Chad Leclerc.
702.
You are listening to The Money Show's best bits.
On How I Make My Money this week, Claire Swanson, the founder of ARK Provisions, sharing her inspiration from a trip to Mexico that led to the creation of a product that just flies off the shelves. It's a fascinating business she's in. It started in her kitchen and is just becoming bigger and bigger. Here's Claire Swanson.
I think I've just always had this entrepreneurial itch. And for my school fees, I spent 25 years in corporate in the product development side of the world, food product development. And so I was afforded, fortunately, loads of opportunities to travel the world and eat food for a living. And then partnering that with just this drive to feed people. I think that's one of my love languages. I stumbled upon this crazy idea in Mexico City, which is gummies or candy coated in this sweet, spicy, sour, savory profile. Yeah, that happened in 2019.
Before you and I go any further, we need to talk about the word gummy. Okay, because I have I don't even understand what I'm talking about half the time. So when I was young, gummy was a bear that bounced. Okay, I don't know if you remember. I can still sing the whole song if I have to. Then it became like a sweet, like what I remember as a jelly baby, something quite similar to that, right? Mm-hmm. Now, you have to be quite careful what gummy you buy. Do you buy it for your parents? Do you buy it for your children? Do you buy it for you? Because it often has cannabis or something else in it. So when you talk about a gummy, what are you talking about?
I'm talking about the same boring regular gummies you find in a retail aisle, but we've just taken those gelatine, fruity flavored gummies and coated it in a sour, fruity base sauce and this chili lime salt. And that's what gives you this very interesting kind of roller coaster of flavor.
Okay.
So definitely not the type that gets you somewhere else.
Yes. Okay. All right. I get that. How did you come across, why specifically that? I mean, did you experiment with different things? Was this, when you were in your corporate life, was this always rolling around in your head a bit?
Yeah, just always kind of becoming kind of hyper-focused on different food trends and then kind of playing it out in the kitchen. But this came from a trip to Mexico in 2019 with my partner. And we were going there to obviously eat lots of amazing tacos. I was obsessed with street tacos. And after having a taco the one day, I went across the road and this lady was selling a whole kind of plethora of candies. And the one that I tasted super familiar to me, but I'm not Mexican by any means, and it was the tamarind in the sweet that was the familiarity or the nostalgia, because I grew up in Cape Town and I ate lots of candy that had a tamarind base or tamarind flavor, and so that was half the winning recipe. And then fast forward to lockdown, we're all at home, we're busy experimenting in the kitchen, and while some people are making banana bread, I was making Mexican candy.
Some of us were making other things. I mean, I should have known there was a lockdown story here. I mean, there are one or two companies I know of that emerged from lockdown. I mean, do you see that as the key moment for you?
Yeah, I think I was definitely for a while prior to that looking for a kind of way to maybe just kind of test my way out of corporate, because I'd literally gone out of high school straight into corporate and worked at one job, worked my way up my entire 25-year career. So I was definitely looking for some other opportunities. And I think the corporate bureaucracy was getting to me a bit. So yeah, I think this opportunity really fell in my lap, not really thought through much, and with no real safety net, I just decided to take a leap of faith.
Okay, so I've never actually asked anyone this. How do you make a sort of gelatine-based sort of gummy? Those kinds of things. I mean, I've had plenty of them. Wine gums was always my favorite. How do you go about making them? What's actually in them for a start?
Yeah, so for us, actually, what we did is we don't physically make or manufacture the base gummy. We actually get in really good quality gummies, either imported or locally made, that have a fruit flavor. And what we spend time in development is making our proprietary chamoy, which is the sauce. And that's made with lots of dried fruit, apricot, hibiscus, chili, vinegar. And then we import the spice from Mexico called tahin. And I often tell people my business exists because I'm fanatical about tahin, but it's the chili, lime, salt. Maybe you would have experienced it on a margarita. But this is what is on the candy or the gummy that's already made, if that were to be.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, what's so interesting about that is when you list those ingredients that you're putting in, I mean, they all sound like something you could put in a salad. Some of them seem so healthy.
Yeah. So the Mexican culture of like snacking and candy eating is so interesting, and always been kind of this play on sweet and sour and spicy, and lots of people actually crave that. If you think of like going to Durban, you'll have a pineapple with chili salt, or Thai people will have chopped fruit and put something savory on. So that like trend actually is a term called swisey, sweet and spicy, is kind of all the rage at the moment. And people generally crave it around like 3-4 o'clock. You just crave this like sweet, salty kind of thing. So our product's very like more adult profile in terms of the flavor. Sure. It's got a bit of heat. And people either love it or they don't.
Do you think it's like one of the reasons that so many of us will like a Coca-Cola? It's not just the sugar. It's easy to put sugar in a drink. Yeah. It's the combination of the sugar and the salt. That's what gives it. Yeah, that was what gives it that kick. Is the same thing happening here? The combination of two different things, the sweet and the sour, that makes it. Yeah. I mean, it's quite a complex thing. It's not just one or the other. It does different things to different parts of your tongue.
Exactly. It's more of an experience as just having a sweet, all-round sweet candy. So that's kind of the base of it. And I think, just that like play of, most people like want this like experience of either too spicy or too salty, too sour. And this product gives it. And also South Africans, I knew from like my school fees in development, particularly love the profile of fruity and sweet. And that was the base of the Mexican candy already. So I knew there was something in there that could potentially work.
I like the phrase you made about the way you described it as an experience. Because there's so many, there's so many different types of sweets out there. Do you think part of the success comes from being something that's slightly different? You're getting two test centers for your money, basically, two taste centers for your money.
Yeah, and I think it's just kind of this disruption in a market that's been pretty kind of stale or same for a while. I think that curiosity that comes with trying it for the first time and then not sure, and then later you crave it, that's kind of what the experience is all about.
It's so interesting. I mean, when you started, were you the only person that you knew making something like that? I'm trying to get an indicator of how important that point of difference was.
It definitely was. No, I hadn't seen anybody else making it locally. The trend I'd seen on an app called TikTok, and it was already kind of quite big in the States. Mexico already was eating sweets like that. When I'd made it, I didn't know of anybody else. And then like very soon after, it was kind of trending because all these social media influencers were tasting it online and reviewing it, etc. And then like little home industry, mom and pop businesses were also starting to make it. So yeah. But we spent a lot of time making sure that on the front end, the product looked like it was ready for retail. So even though I was making it physically in my house, on the front, the packaging, we spent a lot of time on designing and making sure it was really like aesthetically it looked amazing, but also it looked like something that was imported. And I think that's what got the attention from the Checkers buyers at the time, which was 4 years ago. And they've walked the journey with us to be able to scale and take our business onto the next step. Yeah.
If you want the high end, it's got to look high end. Okay,
Yes.
I would love to talk to you, Claire, about how you came across this particular formula. I don't know if you had particular help. I mean, was it a family effort all in the kitchen, boiling, watching, adding, someone was tasting, was it that kind of vibe?
Yeah, in the beginning, it was just myself, my partner, my son, the three of us, and then we got a family member or a friend like helping us initially, like making the product. Then I resigned and we started doing it at home, but I converted one of my rooms into what looked very much like a food safe factory. Stainless steel tables, the flooring line, the sanitary like hand washing station, etc. So we were really like trying to make it in that kind of standard. And then when Checkers came along, they obviously needed particular certificates and standards. And so that's when we started kind of considering, do we build our own factory or what do we do? And that's when we started partnering with another female-run candy manufacturer in Cape Town, and they co-pack for us. So I've got a co-manufacturer with 6 employees who make just our candy for us. And then I now focus on sales and marketing and trying to grow the brand and get that out there.
I just want to go back a little bit. I'm going to come back to that. But it must have been quite a leap of faith to make the investment in your home like that. You had to think this is going to work.
A lot of it was very much the idea or centered around the idea of not being very perfect in the beginning. So just trying things out and then very much like adapting or tweaking things as we went around with a lot of intuition, not very risk averse at the beginning. Yeah. And that kind of helped us to just very quickly move. And we got just these calls. Every week we'd get like 7 or 10 calls from other mom and pop candy stores around the country. People wanted to list our range and resell. So we didn't have any brick and mortar. We still don't have any brick and mortar store. We literally are all e-commerce, direct to consumer on our website and some other little retailers, and now really focused on big box retail with our partnership with Checkers.
Quality and control's got to be a thing, Claire, for a brand of your size. I mean, it's sort of kind of associated with you. I presume you have to manage that quite carefully. You have one bad batch, goodness knows what could happen.
Yeah, we've had a couple of those lessons in the beginning. So being really pedantic about consistency and quality standards was something we put in place right from the beginning. So every batch we produce, we keep reference samples of it up until it expires to be able to taste that through its shelf life. We regularly send products in for lab testing, etc. The key is to have something that is consistent all the way through its shelf life.
So, I mean, you need to do that. You need to manage that. Now, you ended up, as I understand it, selling it. I mean, who was the first person you sold them to? Who was? Can you remember the sale where you actually got money in exchange for sweets?
Yeah.
And a sale that, to someone not related to you, Claire?
August 14, 2021. I remember the date. Even.
It was a nice sunny day.
It was a Sunday. Yeah, it was a candy store in Cape Town that was doing lots of other imported and like viral TikTok candies. And I didn't know that they had this reach with social media influencers. And so they really helped in kind of like getting the product in those hands, and people started reviewing it, tasting it, and then coming back and then just like, overnight the house turned into a candy factory.
There's a kind of Netflix book, The House That Was, anyway. So I'm just, I know nothing about the kind of local sweet shop business. When I think of sweet shops, I really think of one or two chains I come across at the airport that, I always think are a little overpriced, frankly. But, I mean, local sweet shops, are there many of them?
Yeah, I think we've got over 100 little candy stores that buy. And then now we have a national distributor who gets it into kind of outlying areas and into some of the other retailers, forecourts. So loads of opportunities we're wanting to look at. At the moment, we're just scratching the surface. We launched in 10 Checkers, and now as of this week, we go into another 10. So we'll have 22 stores within this week, and hopefully 47 by November, and in Johannesburg by Jan. That's sort of our trajectory. So trying to grow organically and just kind of pull the handbrake a little bit, because with growing so fast, so quickly comes other challenges like working capital and cash flow and those sort of things. So everyone often thinks entrepreneurship is a fairy tale success, but there are many days that I sit and think, okay, what do we focus on now? Who do we pay this month, and so forth? So those are things that are realities of entrepreneurship.
And suddenly you're back in corporate. Claire Swanson is the founder of ARK Provisions, Always Remain Kind. We're talking about her sweets and how they've ended up going, I suppose, I don't know, Claire, am I allowed to say slightly mainstream? I think Checkers is the definition of mainstream.
Them giving us this platform to obviously provide our products to a bigger audience. To place our brand in front of everyday consumers shopping in a trusted retail environment. That's kind of where we got. So really, the partnership's given us that increased visibility, right? And credibility that comes with being stocked in Africa's largest retailer. We're super proud of that milestone.
How did it happen? I'm told it happened by chance. Is that true?
Yeah. I think it was I literally got a DM in my Instagram box 4 years ago, and it was a buyer that said, listen, some colleagues have brought this candy into the office and it's created a little bit of a scream here. Like, we need to meet you. Like, what is this about? So off I go and have a meeting at the head office in Cape Town, and the buyers were like, okay, so let's talk about how we could get this range listed. Where are you importing it from? And I'm like, I'm not importing it. I'm making it actually in my house. So everyone was a little bit shocked. And then, we had to pull the handbrakes a little bit and just kind of pause on the enthusiasm. But then they had kind of decided to walk this journey with us and make us kind of help us to kind of get into the space of thinking and working like a proper supplier. Understanding formal retail.
Sure. So, I mean, that scaling up process in a way, I mean, it's very exciting. You probably spend a lot of time with managers who are basically telling you this is what you have to do and this is the paperwork. I mean, that must have been quite frustrating. And while you do have a bit of help, you're kind of clear. You suddenly realize, sure, this is how much homework I have to do now.
It requires loads of discipline, strong systems, and accurate forecasting. And obviously that ability to deliver your product on time, every time. That's what makes a success. But starting small, you got to start somewhere, but also like thinking about long term and where we want to take the business or the brand. We definitely want to be in a position where we scale as gradually as we can and sustainably as you can. Keeping that resilience going and patience going, because I'd like to launch in all stores overnight, but I've got to really take my time with it.
Have there been so when you've been scaling up in that way and you're suddenly going in this particular direction, is it quite tough to keep it authentic, to keep it the same thing?
Good question. I think at the root of it, we made sure that the product was kind of sorted in terms of it being one thing and keeping it as consistent. It always looked like professional, never looked like really like a homemade project from the beginning. So that was kind of unique in my sense. We quickly realized that obviously having a great product is only one part of the journey. That was important to kind of realize. But there was food safety standards and increasing production volumes and building operational capacity that was quite significant that we needed to invest in and learn. So managing this rapid growth while maintaining the product quality, that's been one of the things we really focused on at the moment, especially going into like our busy season soon.
Claire Swanson there, the founder of ARK Provisions. Always remain kind. How a sweet is starting to take the Western Cape and one presumes soon the country by storm.
702.
The best of the Money Show from this week.
You've been listening to the best bits of The Money Show, a digest of some of the best thoughts and interviews from the show this week. If you'd like to hear more, please go to our website or your podcast app and search for The Money Show. Thanks for listening. We'll be back with The Money Show 6 o'clock on Monday. Have a good weekend.